Many people ask me the real secret to building massive wealth, and I always tell them the exact truth, but nobody wants to believe it. They prefer the flashy lies and the fake gurus selling overnight Lamborghinis, while the real money is made by being incredibly boring and unimaginably patient. Right now, the global financial system is standing on a structural cliff that most people are too distracted by TikTok trends to even notice. I recently sat down with chief market strategist Gareth Soloway to talk about the absolute carnage brewing in the bond market and why the mainstream narrative is totally disconnected from reality. The world is waking up to the fact that the debt to gross domestic product ratio is completely unsustainable. We are looking at a situation where the interest payments on our national debt are sucking the literal life out of our economy. If we took the $1 trillion we waste on interest payments every single year, we could solve almost every domestic problem we have. But instead, we just keep kicking the can down the road with more debt and more fake money creation. Gareth and I went deep into why gold is acting weird right now, because it is being traded like a high-risk tech stock instead of a safe haven asset. The chart shows us that gold is currently in a short-term downtrend with lower highs and lower lows. A lot of people who jumped into gold just to chase the momentum are currently panicking and selling because they cannot handle the volatility. If you are in this for a quick buck, you are going to get crushed by the market every single time. But if you look at the long-term cycle, the chart shows a massive move to the upside starting all the way back in 2022. Even if gold pulls back to $3,500, that is still a massive win compared to where we were just a few years ago. You have to let these market cycles breathe, because nothing goes up in a straight line forever. Without a heart attack, think about the massive tech companies like Meta and Microsoft that are announcing thousands of job cuts right now. These companies are obsessed with spending billions on artificial intelligence, but the real consumer is hurting bad. The top 10% of people with millions in the stock market are still spending like drunken sailors. But if you go to the store and look at the actual prices of eggs and gasoline and groceries, it is getting objectively insane for everyone else. Every single unnecessary dollar you spend on luxury services is a loyal worker you just fired from your wealth-building army. Gareth and I both agreed that the consumer is not okay, and the gap between the haves and the have-nots is reaching a breaking point. It is shocking how fast the cost of basic survival has climbed in just a few months. We also looked at the silver charts, which are currently testing a critical support level around $76. If that level breaks, we are likely looking at a drop down to $50 or even lower. Again, this is just the normal breathing of a market that got overextended and needs to flush out the weak hands. I asked Gareth about platinum and palladium, and he has his buy levels marked out on the chart right around $1,600 to $1,700 for platinum. He is looking to accumulate slowly because the volatility in those metals is absolutely wild. Then we moved on to the most controversial asset on the table, which is Bitcoin. The chart shows a classic bear flag formation, which is a textbook signal for more downward pressure. If the Nasdaq pulls back by 10%, Bitcoin is almost guaranteed to drop down to $60,000 or lower. I have been neutral to bearish on Bitcoin lately, and I would advise everyone to be very, very careful before throwing more cash into that fire. The bond market is also sending us a terrifying warning signal as yields in Japan and across the world are going absolutely bonkers. The central banks are trying to patch everything up with band-aids, but we are moving toward a total financial reset by 2030. This 100-year cycle is a real thing, and it is going to get very ugly for people who are not prepared. We officially have a new chairman at the Federal Reserve named Kevin Warsh. He says he wants to be independent, but we will see if he actually has the guts to hold that line when the pressure gets turned up. The Federal Reserve is trapped between fighting inflation and keeping the stock market on life support. If they cut rates to please the president, they destroy the dollar. If they keep rates high, they might break the entire debt system. There is no easy way out of this trap, and the government is running out of options to kick the can down the road. People ask me what they should do if they are sitting on cash and feeling paralyzed by fear. Do not just sit there and hope for the best while inflation eats your savings. You need to have a concrete plan and a list of specific price levels where you are willing to allocate your capital. If you have cash on the sidelines, treat it like a professional investor and look for value in assets like precious metals when the market is bleeding. The patient long-term investors are the ones who make the real money because they understand that the market is just a mechanism for transferring wealth from the impatient to the patient. Stop watching the headlines and start looking at the math of your own life. Ask yourself, how many hours of your life are you trading just to pay interest on debt that will never be paid off? That is the only question that actually matters for your future. Let me talk to you about the true cost of your ignorance in this financial era. Every time you scroll through social media and see some influencer telling you to buy the latest speculative token, you are losing a piece of your financial soul. They are selling you a dream of luxury while they profit from your transactional fees and your desperate lack of focus. Building a fortune is not about being a genius who predicts the next big jump. In a stock price, it is about the compounding effect of your own discipline and the brutal honesty of your own balance sheet. When Gareth Soloway told me that we are in a massive cycle of flushing out weak hands, he was not just talking about day traders. He was talking about the fundamental shift in how people view value when the fiat currency system begins to shake at its very foundation. We are living in an era where the purchasing power of your hourly wage is being eroded by invisible hands every single day. If you do not own hard assets like gold or silver, or even just high-quality businesses that produce real cash flow, you are essentially swimming against a hurricane. Most people will tell you that it is too late to start or that the market is too scary right now. That is the exact moment when the smart money is actually just beginning to prepare for the long-term cycle. Do not fear the volatility, because the volatility is the price you pay for admission to the long-term wealth game. Think about the $39 trillion in debt as a massive weight on the back of every citizen in this country. Every time the government prints more money, they are essentially stealing from your future self to pay for the mistakes of the past. You cannot win a game that is rigged against you unless you change the rules of how you play that game. You must move your capital into things that cannot be printed by a central bank or devalued by a political decision. Gold has survived every empire and every currency collapse for 5,000 years because it is the ultimate store of value. Silver is the industrial metal that powers our modern world, and it has been historically undervalued by the manipulators of the paper market. Bitcoin is the digital hedge that provides a new way to opt out of the broken system. If you have the stomach for the massive price swings, Gareth was right when he said that we need to be incredibly boring in our strategy. I buy my assets when they are on sale and I hold them while everyone else is panicking and screaming that the world is ending. That is not a genius strategy because it is the most obvious strategy in the history of human commerce. It requires zero talent and 100% patience. The reason you have not reached your financial goals is likely because you keep getting distracted by the next shiny object. You are looking for a miracle when what you really need is a spreadsheet and a long-term vision. Sit down today and look at where your money is actually going every single month. Are you buying assets that put money back into your pocket, or are you buying liabilities that cost you more money every single year? If you cannot answer that question with absolute clarity, you are still a player in someone else's game. The era of easy money is coming to a close, and the new era of reality is going to be incredibly painful for the unprepared. Kevin Warsh represents the establishment, but even he knows that the math is reaching a breaking point that no speech can hide. The Federal Reserve is no longer in control of the market as much as they want you to believe they are. The bond market is telling the truth with higher yields, while the stock market is still trapped in a fantasy world of low rates and infinite stimulus. Eventually the two will collide, and when they do, only the people with real assets will be left standing. I want you to be one of those people because you have the power to change your trajectory starting right now. Stop waiting for the news to tell you what is happening and start reading the data for yourself. Understand the correlation between debt levels and inflation and how it impacts the price of the coffee you drink every morning. Everything is connected, and once you see the pattern, you can never go back to being naive about the world. Your education is the only asset that the government cannot tax or inflate away. Use your time to study the history of previous economic collapses, and you will see that they all share the exact same ingredients: excessive debt and extreme inequality, and a complete loss of trust in the currency. We have all three in abundance right now, which makes this the most critical time to be alive and active in the market. Do not let the fear paralyze you into doing nothing while the rest of the world burns. Take the steps to secure your future by buying the assets that have stood the test of time, and then ignore the noise. The world is going to change significantly over the next few years, and you need to be ready for the ride. Hold on to your assets and keep your eyes on the long-term goal no matter how loud the market gets. Everything I am saying to you is for your own benefit because I want to see you win in a world that wants you to lose. Most people will ignore this advice and continue to lose money in the same cycle of greed and panic. Be the person who decides to break the cycle by doing what is hard instead of what is easy. Stay boring. Stay patient. Peace.